Good morning and welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television. It's a beautiful Thursday morning here in the nation's capital, and we are glad that you are giving us access to your living room free of charge. It's even more beautiful because my co-anchor, who has disappeared from the scene for some time, somehow, not to the covers of the DSS, but on international studies and all that, is back on set. Is delighting to welcome you back on set, Z.
Thank you so much.
You look
Sunday.
refreshed and rested.
I'm glad to see you.
And I hope you brought us a lot of goodies, even though I have not cited any this morning yet.
Very soon you're going to get to
My name
see
is Sunday Michael Ogu. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
And I'm Zainab Bala. Thank you so much for joining us.
We move straight to the headlines this morning. DSS explains why Tukur Mamu was arrested.
Wike Anyim order missing as Atiku meets PDP presidential aspirants.
Police Service Commission ignores IGP, continues recruitment of constables.
And now the news in detail. The Department of State Services has confirmed that Tukur Mamu, negotiator of victims kidnapped from a Kaduna-bound train in March, is in custody. The former negotiator between the terrorists who abducted train passengers in Abuja and victims' families has said he was headed for Saudi Arabia when he was arrested and detained in Egypt for 24 hours. DSS operatives were stationed at the entrance of the international wing of the airport several minutes before the aircraft landed. In a statement, DSS spokesman Peter Afunaya confirmed Mamu's arrest, saying the agency was grilling him over security issues.
We now take a timeline of Tukur's involvement in the negotiation with Bandit.
Saturday, 11th June. Captives released, 11. Amount reportedly paid, 300 million naira. Saturday, 9th July. Captives released, 7. Amount paid, 800 million naira. Monday, 25th July. Captives released, 3. Tuesday, 2nd August. Captives released, 5. Friday, 19th August. Captives released, 4.
Moving on, the Police Service Commission has continued the recruitment process of constables into the Nigerian police force. The commission had suspended the process last month after the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, fumed over an advertorial on the recruitment. Baba, in a statement issued by the force spokesperson, Olamuyiwa Adejobi, had asked Nigerians to disregard the advertorial which was placed in national dailies. The commission later suspended the process and said it wanted to resolve the issue with the IGP. However, in a statement on Wednesday, the PSC said the commission is the sole statutory body exclusively empowered and responsible for the appointment, promotion, dismissal, and exercise of disciplinary control over persons holding or aspiring to hold offices in the Nigerian police force, except the Inspector General of Police. The commission is one of the federal executive bodies captured in Section 153, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended.
Now, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, Akwa Ibom State Governor Udom Emmanuel, and former Senate President Pius Anyim were conspicuously absent on Wednesday when the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, met the 2023 presidential aspirants of the party from the south in Abuja. Among those who attended were Dele Momodu, Tari Oliver, Charles Ugu, and Kalu Chikwendu. Although from the north, Muhammad Hayatuddin also attended the meeting. Atiku at the meeting commended those in attendance for accepting the outcome of the convention that produced him as the PDP standard bearer. He promised to work with all of them ahead of the 2023 general elections, adding that they have various roles to play in the campaign. At the presidential primaries in May, Atiku polled 307 to 1 to defeat his closest rival, Wike, who polled 237 votes. Now, following the outcome of the primary, Wike has been at loggerheads with Atiku over the nomination of Governor Ifeanyi Ukwa of Delta State as the vice presidential candidate.
And moving on to reports this morning, the federal government has warned international carriers against the dollarization of flight tickets, describing it as a violation of the country's law and international agreement. The Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, sounded the warning on Wednesday while briefing newsmen at the State House in Abuja after the weekly meetings of the Federal Executive Council. He spoke on a day the Cabinet approved the National Flood Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan. Kainde Amadu brings us the report.
$484 million had been trapped in Nigeria due to the economic situation, making it difficult for foreign airlines to repatriate their funds. Accusing Nigeria of being the biggest blocker of funds in the world, some of the airlines are now refusing to do business in Naira, among other measures.
Also, they blocked travel agents from access. They also made only available the expensive tickets, and so on and so forth. Our regulators are not sleeping. We have a very vibrant Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Once they found any airline guilty, that airline will be dealt with, because we need to protect our people. It is according to our agreements, to what we have signed, and this is according to international convention.
The minister, however, says efforts are being made to mitigate the situation and prevent further occurrence.
In 2016, Nigeria was under recession, and the income per barrel fell from 140 to 30, and lots of challenges. But yet, Mr. President directed, and the funds were all repatriated, $600 million, and it began to pile up again. It got to $484 now, $million. So far, 260 has been released, but I think 265. So strategy now is being put in place by the central bank, and those are economic managers, to ensure that the money does not pile up again. We're doing everything to make these airlines happy in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, the National Flood Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan, approved on Wednesday, is expected to be a multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder scheme. The strategy document clearly sets out the responsibility of each stakeholder involved in flood management. However, ahead of its implementation, the federal government says it has activated an adequate response to the various incidents of flooding that occurred recently in different parts of the country.
We have activated the response in the way that once these things happen, we move to the field and we respond. If there are issues of evacuation, we evacuate. We give humanitarian interventions to the victims, first as first responders, and then later we can come back to do a thorough assessment of how we are going to support the state governments in rehabilitating the victims.
It is worthy of note that the minister is subtly accusing state governments of not doing enough to prevent floods in their domains. This, she says, is despite the advance warning given by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET. From State House, Abuja, Kainde Amudu, Trust TV News.
Well, there you go. Now, artisans who depend on daily income in Makurdi are lamenting the effect of economic crisis in the country on their businesses. Speaking to our reporter, they decried low patronage occasioned by the cost of materials for production. The report.
Across all sectors, businesses have been negatively impacted as inflation continues to bite harder. This negative effect has not spared artisans and by extension their families.
Of things now, it's not easy for us, like for me when they do this weather, because the price of the material is so high, and all my customers, they are not finding it very easy. So the economic now is very, very high for us.
Beyond low patronage, some customers have resorted to paying less for services rendered, while some service providers have been forced to offer their services for free in order to maintain relationship.
This time around, things are too choked. Like before then, when government was good. In fact, I have a lot of customers. But now, because of no payment of salaries, many people then drop their car because there's no money. So the thing is affecting my business so much. It's not like before. Like now, everybody that comes to my shop, my brother, I don't have money. So I can't understand because of the situation that is happening this time around.
The situation has forced some out of businesses, while those managing to stay say it has become difficult for them to negotiate for services with customers due to high cost of materials for the services.
Actually, those days people do barb less than even 300, but we do get customers regular. Due to the change in government and how things have become so high, cost. Customers do come complain, sometimes even the 300 they cannot pay, just because some of them will complain government is not paying or their business are not moving. Or they have children that they are taking care of, so you have to manage. That's not the way it used to be. You do get little customers, maybe in a day you can get maybe 1.5. Some days are even better than that. You cannot even make up to 1,000 naira. But we are coping, managing. Even if someone bring 150, 200, sometimes we don't understand because of the regularity of the customer coming to the shop.
As the nation battles the current economic downturn, many in this category are hopeful that the necessary policies will be put in place to address the crisis.
At least one person has been killed and 3 others abducted when terrorists attacked Basari town, headquarters of Basari local government area of Katsina State. Eyewitness account told Trust TV's Abdullahi Yamadi that the terrorists who arrived the town on 10 motorcycles began shooting in the air and headed straight to their victim's residence. The report.
The victim was instantly shot and killed when he resisted the attempt by bandits to kidnap him. The terrorists are frequenting Basari. They have been killing, abducting, raping. Thousands of people have been displaced. Many of us are without food, shelter, and our children out of school. What do you think will be the future of this generation? His is not the only sad story. In Basari local government, the terrorists shot 3 women who are currently receiving medical attention at the Federal Teaching Hospital in Katsina and rustled over 300 domestic animals. Our relatives have been shot in a raid by terrorists at Basari. Things are tough and worse by the day. If this situation continues, I can't predict what will happen. In a related development, 3 people were recently abducted at Yankatako quarters in Katsina Metropolis. The terrorists separately abducted 2 children of the registrar Isa Keita College of Education, Duzima, and a housewife. In what looks like deliberate attempts to frustrate and disrupt educational activities, the terrorists attacked the college again on Monday night. The terrorists abducted 3 persons after forcing residents of the college indoors with sounds of heavy gunshots.
The thing is happening, we are not happy. Because of the thing is happening for Duzama local government and Katsina State is disturb us. Because of even yesterday in the night, bandit their attacks. We suspect 3 female in Isa Keita College of Education. So the thing is happening, we are not happy.
It has been a recurring trend and citizens of Katsina are tired. It seems the security situation has fast deteriorated in recent days in spite of frustrated efforts to secure the state. Residents are demanding nothing short of security of lives and property from the state actors as enshrined in the Nigeria's constitution. Abdullahi Ismail, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Indeed, it's a reason for the citizens of Katsina to be tired. Nobody can continue to endure this pace of attack without really getting exhausted. It's at this point that we will take a short breather. When we return, the show continues.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
depends on where you find that a person look like the same.
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
But I have said that.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. It's that moment again where we serve you all the offerings on the major newspapers in Nigeria. And as usual, we would begin with the Daily Trust, which has quite a number of offerings on its front page. But the major one, Kaduna Abuja train attack. Bandit negotiator Mamu nabbed over 2 billion naira ransom, racketeering. This is a big one. He has links with Egyptian terror group, according to security sources. We have him in our custody. This is coming from the Department of State Security, or State Services as they would prefer to be called. Release of our loved one threatens. This is according to relatives, and how Mamu family were picked yesterday. The media was besieged with the story of his arrest in Egypt and eventual repatriation to Nigeria. And moving on to other stories directly below the nameplate. Ayu Walid Jibrin, no fate, as PDP holds NEC meeting today. You'll find the details of that on page 30. Buhari won't withdraw Rex nomination. This is according to the federal government. This you'll find on page 8. ISWAP attack, fleeing Boko Haram fighters. ISWAP attacked fleeing Boko Haram fighters in Borno. I'm not sure whether we should be happy about this or, well, they seem to be taking up arms against themselves. And then you have this very bold, very beautiful picture on the front page of the management of the Media Trust Group, celebrating different categories of its staff, 45 of them in number, who were honored for integrity, excellence, and long service award, with some of them cutting home long service award for 20 years of service. That is commendable. And then we have there in the editor picks column, APC Tinubu yet to unveil manifesto, 20 days to campaign. You'll find the details of that on page 30. FG orders sanction of foreign airlines selling tickets in dollars. That is the dollarization of the Nigerian economy. I think there are also schools in Nigeria today that charge in dollars. Bandit released 43 adopted Zamfara worshippers. Kill one. These are the major headlines on the front page of Daily Trust this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories, this time on the Punch newspaper. And the lead headline there says, massive crude theft. Angry oil workers blame soldiers. Protest today. And then you find all the subsequent headlines right there saying Pegason protests to hold in Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, Warri. Union threatens to stop oil production if theft persists. You'd also see federal government to retrieve arrested vessel, Captain Honor to face prosecution. And then you find other stories there. There's a pictorial there that shows you members of the Ogun State So Safe Corps during a security training in conjunction with the Nigeria Police Force, Ogun State Police Command in Yoa South, Ogun State, which was held on Wednesday. You'd also find other political stories right at the top, where you'd see Atiku meets presidential aspirants, PDP NEC holds today. SANU rejects 23.5% pay rise, state varsities kick. And on page 22, you'll also see the story about federal government to penalize airlines selling tickets in dollars. And on page 19, right at the top, Nigeria plans increased gas exports to Europe 2022. And then just below the pictorial there, the members of the Ogun State Safe Corps, you'd see the story about constituency projects go up 700 billion, telemedicine center faulty. And you'd see the story about Kwara principal allegedly defiled 7 female pupils, absconds. That's quite an interesting story you would like to have a look at. And on page 10, Osun government elect assembles 52 lawmakers for tribunal battle. These are the major stories of the Punch.
And we move on to this Nigeria. The major headlines there stays with political activities in the country. PDP, IU faces heat. South North National Working Committee members stage walkout during meetings, insist on his resignation. We also have a beautiful picture there of a cross-section of army officers with dignitaries at the Nigerian Army Finance Corps at the 13th Biennial Training Conference in Lagos yesterday. With other stories besides the name marks, the FG orders Nka to sanction foreign airlines selling tickets in dollars. Fidelity Bank seeks fresh funds via private placement. You'll find the details of that on page 15. Why we arrested train kidnapped victims negotiator, Tuku, DSS. 2023, 1 million Lagosians abandoned PVC across INEC offices, says REC. You'll find the details of that on page 6. We are not afraid of bullets, bombs. LP tackles Enugu attackers. This will be the Labour Party in response to a trending video over offices that were attacked in the southeast. IPOP deny violent attack on Obi supporters in the coal city. These are the major headlines on the front page of this Nigeria.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Nation newspaper this morning. And the Nation seems to have quite a different approach to some of the stories on their paper this morning. You see the story about PDP crisis, uncertainty over Iyorchia Ayu's fate. And you see just below that, Atiku hosts presidential aspirants from South, Judgment Day coming, says Wike. Oyo governor, no retreat, no surrender. And you'd find other stories as well. Tinubu, we are determined to turn Nigeria's fortune around. No rift between party chair and I, says APC presidential candidate. And you'd find other stories right at the top. Two brothers confess to chopping off father's hand to Russell Cow. Well, someone asked, what is the world turning into? You'd like to read that story on the Nation newspaper. You'd also find other stories saying Abuja Kaduna trained hostage negotiator in DSS custody. Mamu flown back from Cairo. And then on page 7, why Nigeria can't meet OPEC quota. Akeredolu, why Amotekun must carry arms. These are some of the major highlights on the Nation newspaper this morning.
And moving on quickly to the Nigerian News Direct, we have the headline slightly away from political activities. FG to sanction foreign airlines over ticket fare in dollars. Foreign airlines remitted over $600 million to home countries in 2016, according to Hadi Sirika, Minister of Aviation, says $1.1 billion was made from Nigeria in 6 years. That's quite huge. It's a chunk of that money should be staying back home if we had our own local carriers flying to other parts of the world. They repatriate some, we bring back some. And then there you will also find FG pays 103 billion naira subsidy to keep uniform petrol prices for 9 months. This is according to NAMPRA. Parking levy controversy, new provision lawful will eliminate indiscriminate collection. This is according to the Lagos State government. And right above the name marks, we have Pengasin threatening industrial action over spates of oil theft and vandalism. Payments of 5% excise duty beyond ministerial directive. This is according to Budget Office. And state supervised jungle justice reason for unknown gunmen. This is coming for Huriwa. Huriwa is the Human Rights Writers Association. These are the major headlines on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct.
Okay, let's see what's happening on First News. The lead headline there says federal government planning Igboho Kanu treatment for me. Bandits negotiator cries out. And then you'd see arrested alongside family members in Egypt, repatriated back to Nigeria after 24-hour detention, grilling by Interpol. Arrested again by DSS on arrival at Kano Airport. Whisked away to Abuja, clamped in detention. Mamu has questions to answer. He's a person of interest, says DSS. And you find other stories as well, right at the top. Atiku meets PDP presidential aspirants, Wike absent. Fresh fuel scarcity looms as Pengasan threatens nationwide strike. Plans to shut down installations over oil theft. And then you see other stories. The one about why PDP must respect us, Wike. As 17 PDP governorship candidates explain reason behind visit to Rivers governor. You'd find other stories on First News. The one about I'm an ex-convict. I was jailed in UK. Burna Boy reveals. Things you may not know about arrested bandits negotiator Tukur Mamu. 532 children abducted, raped, killed in Northeast in 2 years. That's according to the UN. And then bandits release 43 abducted Zamfara worshippers. Kill 1. You'd also find a story about Oni of Ife's and strange wife, Queen Naomi reacts to monarch's 4th marriage. Now, these are some of the major stories on the First News.
Interesting development there at the chambers of the Oni of Ife. And moving on to Business Day this morning, away from all of the talk around politics, we have as the major headline, foreign investments in agri sector drops to 5-year low. You'll find the details of that on page 38. Retirees moved 563 billion pension fund into the insurance sector. You want the details of that, you turn to page 2 of Business Day. FMDQ foster financial literacy in younger generation. And we have travelers grown as banks struggle to meet dollar demand. You'll find that on page 2. 2023, we aren't threatened by rivals, says Tinubu. You'll find the details of that on page 37. And Buhari December deadline on security unrealistic. This is coming from expert. If you want the details of that, you will turn to page 2. These are the major headlines on the front page of Business Day. We would now take a short breather. When we return, we'll have our analysts in the studio provide perspective to most of the stories making the headlines on the front page this morning. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
because I have said that.
Welcome back. We are now joined in the studio by our regular analyst, a friend of the house and a former senior colleague, the editor-in-chief of Dateline newspaper, Maala Nasru Lawal. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Thank you. I was looking at the front page of Daily Trust newspaper, and when I saw this number of people lined up, it also reminded me of you. You were, for several years, a recipient of these various awards for meritorious service to this platform, and you have been a pathfinder to some of us, so we will continue to remain grateful for your service to journalism as a whole. Starting with the major story, bandit negotiator Mamu nabbed over 2 billion ransom racketeering. Was there ever a time, I mean, when you saw this story, was there ever a time the DSS had declared this man wanted in Nigeria? Did we needed the drama of him traveling abroad and then being repatriated like the Nnamdi Kanu fiasco and all of the things we were hearing? Would there have been a different way of doing this to get even better result from Mamu rather than just a criminal treatment of some sort? What was your reaction?
Well, there are so many things actually going on in my head right now. One of which is the fact that probably they waited for him to go out so that they will give it the international perspective that they are talking about. But since they said this is something that they are assuring Nigerians that the law will actually take its course, maybe we should allow them to do that. But they need to be transparent about this. Nigerians should be carried along. Right now, what they are saying, you know, some of it is already out there. The people know about it. Some of the things they are saying are quite new. And these are things that I think should be presented before a competent court of law. But Mamu is actually not a stranger to things like this. If I remember correctly, in 2009, you know, he had several run-ins with the Kano State government. At that time, he did a report, I think, about the murder of Sheikh Jafar.
That is in his own newspaper.
In his own newspaper, the Desert Herald, which was, you know, somehow people were saying he was like indicting the then administration of Sheikh Haro in Kano. He also had problems with his own state government, that's Yobe State. You know, he holds the traditional title of Denyen Fika, I think in Potiskum. He had problem with that. And then he also had a problem with the then FCT minister, who is now the present governor of Bauchi State. I think he wanted to publish a book that time saying the rot from within. And then he also had so many, you know, cases of, and he has been arrested severally, but, you know, he has always been released. So this time around, like I said, the government should be come clean about this. If they have evidence against him, let them present it before a court of law and then allow the law to take its course like they promised.
Well, it looks like relatives of some of these captives have a whole different perspective to this issue, because they're seeing, like, you know, the whole idea of rescuing their relatives have been sabotaged. What do you think about that?
Yes, you know, like they said, one man's a hero is another man's a villain. The government is saying this is what we have, this is the case we have against him. But, you know, the families of all the victims will feel differently, because whether rightly or wrongly, this man has played a role in the release of their loved ones. And some of them are actually saying that now that you have arrested him, probably you may jeopardize, you know, the fate of those that are still in captivity. Maybe the government should have waited until all these things are over. And I also believe maybe the government should have waited, since at least you have like a window to do all this. Because some of the things that the story is saying, like him scheduling a meeting with some terrorists in Dubai and other places, you should have allowed him to do that, so that at least you get to know the sponsors you are talking about. You get to like arrest all of them at the same time, instead of just like arresting one and then alerting the others in a way. Because once they see this happening, they are likely to take to their own heels. They are not likely to remain, you know, in one place, having seen what has happened to somebody that they are in contact with.
Okay, away from that, talking about the awards, which I mentioned in my opening remarks, we saw 45 of them rewarded for integrity, excellence, and more importantly, long service award, like I said earlier. And I would like to reiterate, you were for several times on several events a part of this award. And so sharing your story, what does this make you feel that the company, even after they had left, are continue to keep pace with this tradition?
Well, first of all, I would want to congratulate the recipients of the award, and then the company for also sustaining the tradition, you know, because to be doing this for 20 years, more than 20 years actually, because a company that started in 1998, you know, still doing this, this is likely to encourage staff to put in their best, you know, to be able to do what is expected of them. Because like so many people will say, when you fail to commend people, then you are also like forfeiting your right to condemn them. So, but with things like this, I think the staff are encouraged to always put in their best, and then also the outside world will now see what the Daily Trust is actually all about.
So how important is it for other outlets to emulate this?
Well, if you want your staff to put in your best, their best, these are some of the things that you should be doing. But you know, Actually, in other companies, I'm not specific about any, but they even find it difficult to do the basics, for their staff, payment of salaries and other entitlements. But for this company, this is something that it is actually well known for. It has been doing it for 22 years now, like I said. So I think the other companies have a lot to actually learn from the Media Trust.
And moving away from that, we have the charge from the aviation ministers to airline regulatory agencies to sanction airlines that choose to dollarize their tickets. It does appear that a lot of other companies are taking cue from some of the things that are happening. There are hotels in this country where they take dollar fees. In fact, the front desk officer, and I wonder how sophisticated that job is. It's a foreigner. I've seen a number of them in Lagos. I think I can take them there for free if they want me. There are schools that are purportedly designed for diplomats or sort, to whatever standards, and they also take charges in dollar. We are seeing a gradual de-dollarization of the Nigerian economy, something similar to what we see in Zimbabwe. For whatever reason, only the heavens know. How timely is this charge from the aviation minister?
Well, I think this is something that they are only mouthing. I don't think they will be able to follow it up to a logical conclusion, because we are partly responsible for what is happening, because I don't know of any other country that has, up to this number of windows where you can buy or sell foreign currencies. And Nigerians have seen quite clearly that if you do this, maybe you tend to get more value for your own money, because if the government is telling you this is the value of the dollar, maybe around 400 plus, and then somewhere else you can sell the same currency, at a much higher. Honestly, you will want to go for
the higher window.
So it's now time for the government to actually see how it can close all these windows so that we have one single window that everybody will have to do his transaction. We don't have to wait until the airlines, are doing things that we know so many people are already doing for us to start coming out with things like this.
Interesting. Zainab, before I hand over to you, the ISWAP guys are flexing muscles with the Boko Haram guys. As far as we are concerned, it's the same. It's we versus them. But I don't know how Malam Nasir will react to this. Are we supposed to be happy that this is happening beyond just the reportage? What does this signpost? Does it create a sense of a space, within our country that is completely out of the control of government for these people to be taking arms against each other? How should we feel when we see stories like this?
I think we should be both happy and then we should also be worried because the lesser terrorists we have around, the better for all of us. But to see that it's actually one terrorist, having an edge over the other, then we should have a cause to worry, because maybe if they finish with the arrivals, they will not have all the time in this world to concentrate on other soft targets.
That's not good at all.
So I think we should both be happy and then also worried at the same time.
Quite interesting, but we do hope that regardless, that everything turns out good. Now let's take a look at some more stories on The Punch. It looks like Pengassan are planning to hold a protest in Lagos because of massive crude theft. And also angry oil workers are blaming soldiers for this. What is your reaction to the story?
Well, I think it's a legitimate thing for them to do, but my problem is how we go about, airing our grievances. There should be several other outlets, through which we can vent our anger and what have you. But, the problem with Nigeria, once you have a problem, you take it to the streets, blocking the roads, for innocent users, doing so many things that the government that you are actually fighting will not even feel it. And already they are talking about we may end up with fuel scarcity. How does that, you know?
Well, that's no good news.
That's not a good news, because seeing what we just came out of, honestly, this should be something that we should worry about.
But staying with the concerns that they raise, the issue of oil theft in Nigeria, I was looking at the statistics that suggest that outside Nigeria, Angola, and one other country that are the major oil exporters, the oil theft, the volume of oil theft in Nigeria is the 4th largest. Are there no truth to what they are saying? How can you coordinate such a massive theft in a market that is so controlled, in a water and airspace that we claim by our regulatory agencies are visible to those agencies that man them? How do we coordinate this amount of theft and yet pretend we do not know how these things are taken away?
Actually, most of the information, you know, that is out there is coming from the government itself. You know, all these issues about fuel theft and what have you. But the fact is, we have all the security agencies, you know, in these places. You have the civil, you have the NSCDC, you have the police, you have soldiers, you know, they're all over. And then things like this continue to happen. So this is why sometimes you tend to give credence to all the allegations that the security agencies are actually part of this. Because unless you are a part of this, then I see how this things like this should keep happening, because you have a responsibility. You are detailed there to protect the pipelines, but we keep having instances of you know, theft and what have you. So honestly, the security agencies should have a rethink, and then the government should also do the needful. Already they are talking about giving out contracts to ex-militants, you know, to secure some of the pipelines, and this has been greeted by, you know, so many controversies, because these people are, well, whether right or wrongly, they are said that they have been said to is it brandish arms, you know, which the governor of Ondo State is already complaining about, saying that if non-state actors should be allowed to carry weapons, then why not Amotekun and other security arrangements that the states are actually coming up with in a way that you know, they will help the government to face
fighting security,
all the insecurity we are facing.
Very interesting. Now, there's a story I would like for you to react to. The one about Kwara principal allegedly defiled 7 female pupils, absconds. This is somebody that's supposed to be a custodian to these children, and then we're seeing such stories coming from this same person.
Very, very unfortunate. I remember what happened to Hanifa in Kano, and you will think maybe with that people will, you know, have a change of mind before they are even arrested, or before they are even, you know, before they are like out there in the open to know that this is what they are into. But we are talking about 7 pupils. We are not talking about 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, the number is really high. And I wonder how he was able to get away with that, because I don't want to believe he was able to do that, you know, in a single day. It's like he has been doing it over time, but
that also suggests some kind of failure of parenting. I mean, do we even check our pupils when they return from school to see if there are marked differences with the way they left, or they are picking up traits or withdrawing, you know, something that should prick the parent? It does appear that we had left the grooming of our wards to just the school and the school teachers, and they come back, all we do is serve them food, they go to sleep and prepare them for the next day. Does it not speak to a complete neglect of upbringing to just the school?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a complete neglect, because this is something that has to do with trust. You know, you trust the school enough to be to leave your child in their care, and if things like this are happening, then you also have to like do your own preliminary things. Like, why should you know, take your son or your child to a place that he will be violated. You know, you wouldn't even have the time to do like a follow-up, because some kids, for all you know, may be telling their parents this is what is happening, and some parents will not pay attention to it, and some parents will say, no, maybe you don't want to go to school, and you know, all sorts of things. So it's time for parents to actually be paying attention, like you said, to what is happening in and out of the school, because some of the things that are actually happening do not happen in the school. Maybe he's using the opportunity of this familiarity, you know, with all the pupils and be perpetrating his crime. But maybe I see it very difficult for a stranger to you know, just do something like this and get away with it without being found out.
Amazing. Still staying with, or rather going back to political discourse, the PDP, as the nation will report it, uncertainty over UHIU's fate as the PDP holds neck. There had been a fought and back. Yesterday we saw the presidential flag bearer pay host to a number of those warring groups. We saw governorship aspirants in about 15 of the states pay visits to Wike, even though he was absent in the reverse visit to the party ticket holder. How do you see this problem playing out? It does appear like the party has resigned to its fate of probably losing out Wike in a bid to move forward. Do you see any resolution in the wind?
Well, from what I can see, they are still like, you know, going after Wike to see if there is a way they can like get him back. But like you said, honestly, they should act as if he's no longer there, so that they don't get bogged down. Right now, we are like 20 days away from the commencement of campaigns, and you are still talking about reconciliation, when you should actually be having a united front that you should use to face your rivals and for fellow competitors. But what more can they do? The things that people are talking about, IU is partly responsible for some of the things that are happening, because he said it himself that if there is a presidential candidate from the northern part of the country, he will have to quit. And it has happened, but we are
seeing something different.
Yeah, seeing something different. So maybe if he hadn't said that, then maybe he wouldn't have been here, because you know, one thing about people saying all the things they think they can say, that's why people say you should make your words soft and tender, because some days you have to chew them.
Absolutely.
So, maybe that's the case we are facing.
Well, talking about reconciliations, we are seeing that Tinubu is saying we are determined to turn Nigeria's fortune around. And he's also saying no rift between Chair and I.
Well, you know, so many people are saying don't believe anything until it is officially denied. The fact that he's coming out to say, you know, there is no rift, then it suggests that maybe there is something that the public is not yet aware of, and he's trying to like preempt whatever things may get to the public. But the rift is normal in politics. You know, this is democracy. People should be allowed to say their minds, and this may not go down well with some sections of the party. But if you are able to like get the majority on your side and then be able to do this, then fine and good. The problem is for you to have a divided house, and if you go to an election with a divided house, honestly,
calamity awaits.
Yeah.
There's this story from This Nigeria, and it says 2023, 1 million Lagosians abandoned PVC across INEC offices. And we have seen similar stories in the past about how people make all the effort, and we know how difficult it is indeed to get to be registered for these PVCs, only to abandon them. Others only to merely have something as a means of identification, since they neither have a car to require a driver's license, or they do not intend to travel abroad to require an international passport, and getting the national ID card has become an exercise in perpetuity. So it does appear like the voters card is the quickest. They have a different motivation essentially for the voters card. But what can we do to really get these people to take up their civic responsibility, you know, retrieve these cards and at least participate in our recruitment process?
Well, I remember recently there was this report in the media that some are actually abandoning their PVCs because maybe they have relocated, they have moved out of their former residential areas and things like that. But the electoral body should come out to tell them that you can actually relocate your PVC. The fact that you registered in Lagos does not mean you cannot transfer it to maybe Kano if Kano is where you are now presently residing. So maybe this has to do with
this kind of
information, or and then probably some are no longer interested. Like I said earlier on this show, if people feel they can't like get anything out of the current political system, they may think it's only a waste of time for them to even register and then be going through all the processes only for them to end up with leaders that will act as if they don't care at all.
But, you know, we've seen with how other institutions operate, like the banks. If you go and you request for an ATM, once it's ready, you get all kinds of text messages reminding you to pick it up.
Right.
And if you have moved, like you rightly mentioned, they will tell you, you can ask that it be sent to wherever. Some others, for instance, who are in the military or the rest, may have gone for special assignments. And some are students. The schools have been, they probably had registered in the states where they are schooling, and the schools have been shut out for several months, and they are unable to just basically travel to go retrieve. But it does appear that our enlightenment stops at just encouraging people to go and register. When it comes to retrieving these items, we don't see sufficient. I get a mail when I did my transfer, but I wonder what happens to the several other Nigerians who are not even using smartphones. Who, how did they get across? Should we, I mean, shouldn't the electoral body be looking at a different way of really encouraging? Because retrieval may be very useful. If you eventually make up your mind that you are not retrieved, I wonder how you can participate. What can we do to then raise this level of awareness to encourage people to pick up their cards?
I think it all boils down to the problem we have with identity management. In so many clans, you don't even have to get a PVC for you to participate in any election. But if you leave that for Nigerians to decide, you know, you may end up with people doing it multiple number of
times and different locations.
So maybe that's what we should start focusing our attention to, how we will be able to vote in elections without necessarily owning all these PVCs, because the more PVCs we print, the more money we spend, and right now we don't even have that luxury, you know, to be able to be spending money on things that in the end may not be of any use. So I think the government should focus its attention on, you know, having a system where Nigerians that are eligible, you know, that are of voting age, will be able to vote without necessarily going through all the processes of acquiring voters card.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up here.
True.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure as always. We would now take a short break. When we return at the top of the hour, the show continues. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
Every patriotic Nigerian should hear this. Any politician who means well for the people will never allow themselves or their supporters to engage in any violent, destructive activities. No politician who truly wants to serve the people and develop the nation will encourage his followers to destroy properties or take human lives before, during, or after the elections. The Nigerian public must watch out for these traits and isolate any politician who encourages supporters to engage in violence. No genuine politician or patriot will cause trouble and seek to destroy the very society which they aspire to lead or develop. Politicians who have the good of the people at heart will not allow themselves or their followers to engage in violence, destruction of properties, and then taking of lives. Be vigilant. By their words you shall know them. Shun violence. Stay away from politicians who want you to do so. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NORA.
Hello and welcome. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. I'm Zainab Bala.
I'm Sunday Michael Ogu. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Our headlines for you this morning. Police Service Commission ignores IGP, continues recruitment of constables.
DSS explains why Tukur Mamu was arrested.
Wike Anyim order missing as Atiku meets PDP presidential aspirants.
Now the news in details. The Department of State Service, DSS, has confirmed that Malam Tukur Mamu, former negotiator of the victims kidnapped from a Kaduna-bound train in March, is in their custody. The former negotiator between the terrorists who adopted train passengers in Abuja and victims' family had said he was headed for Saudi Arabia when he was arrested and detained in Egypt for 24 hours. DSS operatives were stationed at the entrance of the international wing of the airport several minutes before the aircraft landed. In a statement, DSS spokesperson Peter Afunanya confirmed Mamu's arrest, saying the agency was grilling him over security issues. We will now take a timeline report of Tukur Mamu's involvement in the negotiation with Bandit.
Saturday, 11th June. Captors released 11. Amount reportedly paid 300 million naira. Saturday, 9th July. Captors released 7. Amount paid 800 million naira. Monday, 25th July. Captors released 3. Tuesday, 2nd August. Captors released 5. Friday, 19th August. Captors released 4.
Has continued the recruitment process of constables into the Nigeria Police Force. The Commission had suspended the process last month after the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, fumed over an advertorial on recruitment. Baba, in a statement issued by the force spokesperson Olumuyiwa Adejobi, had asked Nigerians to disregard the advertorial which was placed in national dailies. The Commission later suspended the process and said it wanted to resolve the issues with the IGP. However, in a statement on Wednesday, the PSC said that the Commission is the sole statutory body exclusively empowered and responsible for the appointment, promotion, dismissal, and exercise of disciplinary control over persons holding or aspiring to hold offices in the Nigeria Police Force, except the Inspector General of Police. The Commission is one of the federal executive bodies captured in Section 153, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended.
And moving on to political stories, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, Akwa Ibom State Governor Udom Emmanuel, and former Senate President Pius Ayim were conspicuously absent on Wednesday when the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party met with the 2023 presidential aspirants of the party from the South in Abuja. Among those who attended were Dele Momodu, Tari Oliver, Charles Ugu, and Kalu Chukwendu. Although from the North, Mohammed Hayatuddin also attended the meeting. Atiku at the meeting commended those in attendance for accepting the outcome of the convention that produced him as the PDP standard flag bearer. He promised to work with all of them ahead of the 2023 elections, adding that they have various roles to play in his campaign. At the presidential primaries in May, Atiku pulled 371 votes to defeat his closest rival, Wike, who pulled 237 votes. Following the outcomes of the primary, Wike has been at loggerheads with Atiku over the nomination of Governor Ifeanyi Okowa of Delta State as the vice presidential candidate.
Moving on, the federal government has warned international carriers against the dollarization of flight tickets, describing it as a violation of the country's laws and international agreements. Minister of Aviation Hadi Sidika sounded the warning on Wednesday while briefing newsmen at State House, Abuja, after the weekly meeting of the Federal Executive Council. He spoke a day the Cabinet approved the National Flood Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan. Kainde Amodu reports.
$484 million had been trapped in Nigeria due to the economic situation, making it difficult for foreign airlines to repatriate their funds. Accusing Nigeria of being the biggest blocker of funds in the world, some of the airlines are now refusing to do business in Naira, among other measures.
Also, they blocked the travel agents from access. They also made only available the expensive tickets, and so on and so forth. Our regulators are not sleeping. We have a very vibrant Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. Once they found any airline guilty, that airline will be dealt with because we need to protect our people. It is according to our agreements, to what we have signed, and this is according to international convention.
The minister, however, says efforts are being made to mitigate the situation and prevent further occurrence.
In 2016, Nigeria was under recession, and the income per barrel fell from 140 to 30. And lots of challenges. But yet, Mr. President directed, and the funds were all repatriated, $600 million. And they began to pile up again. It got to $484 now, million. So far, 260 has been released. But I think 265. So strategy now is being put in place by the central bank, and those are economic managers, to ensure that the money does not pile up again. We're doing everything to make these airlines happy in Nigeria.
Meanwhile, the National Flood Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan, approved on Wednesday, is expected to be a multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder scheme. The strategy document clearly sets out the responsibility of each stakeholder involved in flood management. However, ahead of its implementation, the federal government says it has activated an adequate response to the various incidents of flooding that occurred recently in different parts of the country.
We have activated the response in the way that once these things happen, we move to the field and we respond. If there are issues of evacuation, we evacuate. We give humanitarian interventions to the victims, first as first responders, and then later we can come back to do a thorough assessment of how we are going to support the state governments in rehabilitating the victims.
It is worthy of note that the minister is subtly accusing state governments of not doing enough to prevent floods in their domains. This, she says, is despite the advance warning given by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amudu, Trust TV News.
Moving on, artisans who depend on daily income in Makurdi are lamenting the effect of the economic crisis in the country on their businesses. Speaking to a reporter, they decried low patronage occasioned by the cost of materials for production. The report.
Across all sectors, businesses have been negatively impacted as inflation continues to bite harder. This negative effect has not spared artisans and by extension their families.
Of things now, it's not easy for us, like for me when they do this weather, because the price of the material is so high, and all my customers, they are not finding it very easy. So the economic now is very, very high for us.
Beyond low patronage, some customers have resorted to paying less for services rendered, while some service providers have been forced to offer their services for free in order to maintain relationship.
This time around, things are too choke. Like before then, when government was good. In fact, I have a lot of customers. But now, because of no payment of salaries, many people then drop their car because there's no money. So the thing is affecting my business so much. It's not like before. Like now, everybody that comes to my shop, my brother, I don't have money. So I can't understand because of the situation that is happening this time around.
The situation has forced some out of businesses, while those managing to stay say it has become difficult for them to negotiate for services with customers due to high cost of materials for the services.
Actually, those days people do barb less than even 300, but we do get customers regular. But due to the change in government and how things have become so high cost, customers do come complain, sometimes even the 300 they cannot pay, just because some of them will complain government is not paying or their business are not moving, or they have children that they are taking care of, so you have to manage. That's not the way it used to be. You do get little customers, maybe in a day you can get maybe 1.5. Some days are even better than that. You cannot even make up to 1,000 naira. But we are coping, managing. Even if someone brings 150, 200, sometimes we don't understand because of the regularity of the customer coming to the shop.
As the nation battles the current economic downturn, many in this category are hopeful that the necessary policies will be put in place to address the crisis.
Well, there you go. Now let's take a quick break. When we come back, the show continues. Stay with us.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels. Leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television, and we will be delving straight into our conversation this morning. A very interesting and different kind of conversation, away from politics and talking money to talking ourselves this morning. The World Physical Therapy Day is observed every year on September 8th, incidentally today, and is celebrated to raise awareness about the critical role of physical therapists and chronic pain therapy in keeping people healthy and fit. Physical therapists attempt to treat an injury or deformity, educate patients about healthy behaviors, and restore lost or damaged functionality. With a high rate of depression and other mental health diseases across the globe, we look at the significance of this day. And we have been joined in the studio by the head of physiotherapy department, State House Clinic, Abuja, Dr. Aldrich Bennett Ilochukwu. And I can tell you for sure that he looks very fit this morning. It is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, and thank you for coming on the program.
My pleasure.
This is a celebration that has been observed for about 70 years now. Physiotherapy practice in Nigeria, every time we hear that, it looks like something you necessarily have to show up in the hospital to get, even though it does appear that even by cultural practices, we seem to have been carrying different forms of this. With every time we call it massage, maybe. I leave it at that. But considering the importance of today's occasion, and especially your concentration on arthritis, how relevant is this conversation, and how often, should we be having this kind of conversation other than on a special day like this?
Okay, today we're focusing on osteoarthritis, not just arthritis. There are many of them: gout, juvenile, septic, rheumatoid. All of them are arthritis, but today's osteoarthritis is different from others, and they affect millions of people worldwide. We have so many predisposing factors and things we need to tell people. If you do this, you may not end up with osteoarthritis. So prevention, they say, is better than cure.
Right.
So that's why the conversation should be ongoing, regular. Remember, physiotherapy is not all about treating only osteoarthritis or massage, like you say. We are not massage.
What's masseuse?
No, not at all, not at all. I didn't spend, now physiotherapy in Nigeria is 6 years.
Wow.
You do 6 years, do 1 year internship, 1 year youth service, 8 years to become a masseuse.
That's a lot to just be a masseuse.
So now you graduate with doctor of physiotherapy.
Is it a question of the masseuse stealing your own glory?
Well, we do soft tissue mobilization. That's what people mistake for massage. So maybe it looks similar, but they are worlds apart, so to speak.
Okay. Now, it looks like physiotherapy sometimes it has a connection with, mental health. There's a friend of mine that I know, she's always telling me she's having depression, she's going for physiotherapy, and I fail to understand why she's doing that. So could you just shine a light on if there's any link between mental health and the issue of physiotherapy?
There is a very big link. For one, there's a specialty of physiotherapy called mental health. So there are specialists in that area, physiotherapists. And also, when you exercise, your mood changes. Depression goes away. So instead of loading yourself with antidepressants, you can as well exercise so that the body can release its natural hormones that make you have a light mood, feel happier, So it's not about drugs every time. So when she says she's coming to physiotherapy department or to see a physiotherapist because of her mental health, kudos to her. She's on the right path.
So when you talk about exercise, that becomes a tricky one for Nigerians because, I mean, I was in Lagos for 7 years. You have to wake up 4 o'clock and fight to get into the bus, fight to come down from the bus, trek some miles to get to the office. You do that all day. And as a journalist, it's even worse because you're an outdoor person. So you do that routine every time. And when at the initial stage, they say, go for exercise. I said, look, my routine in a day is sufficient exercise. And they tell you, no, there's a difference between stress and exercise. So what is that difference between stress as occasioned by our routine daily and what is an exercise really?
Okay, let me call that stress physical activity. That's a better word for it.
Okay.
Physical activity is anything you do that requires movement of the body, requires expenditure of energy. But when you talk about exercise, talk about movement of the body parts that is repetitive, expenditure of energy, but tied to a health benefit, a health goal. If I'm exercising to lose weight, there's a health benefit. If I'm exercising for my mental health, there's a health benefit.
Right.
If I'm exercising to keep fit, but if a dog is chasing me and I'm running for my life,
that's an activity.
So if I'm climbing the stairs, that's physical activity. So if there is a health benefit attached to physical activity, then you talk about exercise, repetitive body part movement and energy expenditure.
Okay, I think it now brings us to discussing how to prevent some of these things, as you mentioned in your opening remark. Is there something we should be doing? Are there things that we are not doing as part of our daily routine on the average as Nigerians that could then occasion some of these conditions? Because while I was looking them up, they were saying some of these conditions become manifest at age 40 or thereabout. What should we do prior to age 40 to sort of dodge those missiles when they come?
Let's look at the risk factors, things that predispose someone to osteoarthritis. Maybe it will help us get a better picture. You've mentioned age. It's not only 40. Let's look at 50. Let's raise the bar a little bit.
Okay.
Below 50, men are more active generally. So osteoarthritis, when it comes in men generally at the age of 50 below. Then above 50, women take over the baton. Because then menopause, childbearing, so many things, okay? So I've just discussed age, and everybody ages.
That's right.
That is one. The second thing is it can be genetical. It can run in the family. So if somebody has a father, a grandfather, a grandmother, brothers, uncles that are down with this, chances are you may. Remember the word is may. So genetic factor is on the table. Look at weight. Osteoarthritis affects all the joints, but most especially weight-bearing joints, like the bones of the neck, the bones of the back, the bones of the hip, the bones of the knee, the bones of the ankle. So the more the weight, the more the chances of having osteoarthritis because the joints are overburdened. Now we talk about anatomical structure. If somebody has a pronounced bow leg or K leg, now the weight transfer is not as it should. So the person may come down with osteoarthritis, but it increases the chances. So what can we do? We're going to exercise right.
Exercise, the emphasis on the word right.
Exercise is medicine.
Right.
You see people, for medication, you can take an overdose. You can take an underdose. You can take a wrong dose. Same with exercise. You can under-exercise. You can over-exercise, and you can do the wrong exercise. No two people can have the same exercise regimen 100%. That's why when you meet a physiotherapist, he looks at you, tell us an exercise that will fit your condition. So when we exercise right, osteoarthritis, the chances are lowered. Then when we keep down the weight, now, another thing that predisposes one to osteoarthritis, a previous joint injury. Any injury to the joint at any age will increase the person's chances of having osteoarthritis later in life. So when there's a previous joint injury, we advise, apart from seeing the medical doctors, the orthopedic, the consultants, try and see physiotherapists so that we are sure that the motion, the range of motion of the joint and everything is okay. Now, exercise is not all about running, carrying weight. There are 4 basic groups of exercise types. We have the aerobic. The one you say you run and you get out of breath, it has its own
side effect.
It has its own use. Then the one, strength training and aerobic, keep on lifting weight. You don't easily run out of breath, but you get tired, but just to train the muscles.
Right.
We have balancing exercises. The one that makes you not to fall easily, because osteoarthritis can make somebody fall easily because of pain and other things.
Right.
Then we have flexibility. Try to stretch. You see them do it in yoga, and anybody you see stretching is increasing the flexibility. So these 4 types. So we now try to give a patient or the client each one a measure depending on the person's needs. So, in a nutshell, to prevent osteoarthritis, keep down the weight, exercise right, even eat right, and if you have it in the family, know that chances are, so you start early to do something so that it doesn't come on.
Interesting.
Okay, now, so would you say there's enough education out there in the public space for people to actually consult with physiotherapists?
Well, there is sufficient, but not enough. That's why every September 8th, globally, in the whole world, even in Nigeria, what I'm doing here, other people are doing in other states to sensitize, to create awareness.
Right.
Physiotherapy came to Nigeria in 1945. It would be Lagos. So 77 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. But many people still think of us as masseuse. So we create awareness at every opportunity. We go for outreach. People invite us. We go and give talks. A whole lot. Let me say, a lot of things have been done, but the room to do more is still there.
Okay.
Interesting conversation there with Dr. Aldrich Bennett Ilochukwu. By the way, he took time to explain that his name, or rather he was named after his sage, a very wise person, and you can see clearly that his choice of profession was a very wise one. It's
right, and he's not a masseuse.
He's not a masseuse. Clearly. It's a pleasure to have you join us in the studio to provide more enlightenment around the issues of physiotherapy or physical therapy for easy pronunciation, and we wish you the best of the day with your other engagements for the day. Thank you.
Happy World Physical Therapy Day.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you. We would take a short break, and when we return, the conversation continue. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television. Now let's take a look at the second discussion on the program this morning, and we're going to be talking about a burning issue, ASUU. The federal government on Tuesday said it could only afford a 23.5% salary increase for all categories of the workforce in federal universities, except for the professional cadre, which will enjoy a 35% upward review. This is just as President Muhammadu Buhari warned the government team involved in the negotiation with the striking academic staff union of universities, ASUU, against signing any agreement which the government would not be able to implement. The president also directed the government team to persuade the university lecturers to return to work. Now let's get to the reaction of lecturers to this proposal. We have in the studio Dr. Abdulrahman Abu Hamisu. He's a lecturer from the University of Abuja, and we also have joining us via Zoom from Zaria in Kaduna State, a senior lecturer with Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Dr. Muhammad Hashim Suleiman. Thank you so much for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you, Dr. Abdulrahman.
And the pleasure is all mine.
The ASUU has been on the news for almost forever these last couple of days. There have been intensified efforts to get your members back to the classroom. There have been offer, would I call it offer and rejection or offer and counter offer? We've had the government, put out all kinds of position. But as an ASUU member, what exactly is the situation? We are now beginning to see even members of the NAN say it appears the government has done more than enough, but it still does appear that what the government is doing is not enough for ASUU. So what is the missing link between what is offered and what ASUU is asking?
Well, I don't think there is any missing link. What we're seeing is a union that is organized, well organized, and that is using its position to its own advantage, irrespective of whatever the country is going through or whatever people are feeling. Yeah, we have our challenges as a nation, and we know that globally, nations are in crisis. And they're doing their utmost to ensure that they stabilize, especially coming from the background of coronavirus that led to the shutdown of global trade. Countries are still grappling with the challenges arising from that. You add the issues around insecurity in this country that is really challenging, and it has affected a lot of people, including lives that have been lost. It has paralyzed trade across Nigeria. You know how it is to survive in this country. Now you talk about corruption. When you talk about corruption, it's not only in the society. Even in the academia, there is corruption in abuse of public offices for one's benefit, especially those that are the aims of affairs. Now, when you put all of this together, you come to realize that Nigeria itself as a country is broke. You understand the magnitude of deficit financing that we're talking about, the debt servicing ratio to GDP and other things that are used as indices for measuring progress or retrogression of any country. So Nigeria is in a dire strait, and caution is supposed to be the word, and people are supposed to reason along the line of stability. We know what has happened in other countries where government has declared bankruptcy. I think that this is where we're heading to. And ASUU, as a responsible organization that has been partnering government to solve marital problems right from the very beginning, should not be obstinate, should not say it's either we have it our own way or there is no any other way. By the time we get to that position, there will be no negotiation. And what you see will be continuous strike, and then that again does a lot of damage to the system. A lot of parents will lose confidence in the system. Infrastructure will decay because they are not being put into use. Reptiles will take over. A lot of parents will take their children out of the country, and that again will lead to frittering away of our resources. Because no matter what, if they are within the country, I bet you there will be a little multiplier effect in terms of spending. There are economies that are built around campuses. For instance, I attended Nigerian University, so I know parents that are dependent on the university to earn a living, to equally pay their bills and send their kids to school.
That's right. I would like you to hold your thought on that while we bring in Dr. Abu Hamisu. Good morning, Doctor. Are you Sorry, Hashim. Good morning, Doctor. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Much, Doctor. I'm sure you have listened to your counterpart in the studio advance some position. I would like to have your take on some of his opening thoughts with regards to this lingering crisis.
He's not only a colleague, he's a very dear friend. Good morning, Dr. Hamisu. I hope you can hear me.
The floor is yours.
Hello?
Go on.
Can you hear me?
Doctor, you can go ahead. We can hear you loud and clear.
All right, thank you. Please, from your opening remarks, it wasn't an offer, it was a unilateral offer. The government decided to discard all that we have been discussing as form of collective bargaining right from 2017, right from Wale Babalakin's committee up to Professor Munzali's committee, now Professor Nimebre's committee. But unilaterally from a fiat, the government discarded whatever we have been discussing and brought out a so-called offer, if I should put it that way. So as far as ASU is concerned, the principles of collective bargaining, which even the Dispute Act give legal backing to, has been discarded by government. So as far as ASU is concerned, it wasn't an offer, but a unilateral take it or leave it slave master relationship offer. That is the stand of things.
Dr. Hashim, you have also listened to him, but you raised a very valid concern, which was one of also taking into account the global economic reality, which we are not divorced from. It's common knowledge what has become of our income or revenue sources. Whilst other countries are benefiting from what should be a windfall, we are in a dire strait, as you rightly mentioned. And today we have a debt service ratio that is 300% higher than what we can take. We are now talking about a possible 7 to 9 trillion naira provision for just subsidy in the coming budget. How much realistically do you think this government can meet in terms of all of the agreements that have been mentioned by Dr. Suleiman, for us to get back to a point where students can honestly get back to the classroom?
What is happening in Nigeria, especially the issue of abuse of office. Most of us will not even work in the public domain because what is being paid is not commiserable with what is being given. But again, some people labor to keep this country alive and then handed it over to us. So nation building, service to the nation is a sacrifice. Secondly, one is not against pay rise. I won't say that the lecturers are being paid what is commensurable with their services. But again, the lecturers equally have one opportunity. Just like the medical doctors, they are about the two professions that you could work in the public sphere as equally you could work in the private sphere. You could earn a living, and nobody has ever asked anybody to account for that. So lecturers engage in consultancy services. Mm-hmm. Though that, again, is really fizzling up. But if you look at what is before us, and you are to make a decision, though it may be painful, but in view of the global realities before us, in view of our own realities, that the government is equally paying salaries, fighting the insurgency, the bandits, in addition to the system that is leaking. Because the same people that are supposed to even ensure that leakages are blocked are the same people that are equally creating the avenues and the loopholes to siphon. So most of the things that we're talking about are self-inflicted. I give an example. You work in a university. The last time we were on NTA, my senior colleague did mention that he went to a university where a department has just 5 microscopes for, say, 100 or 200 students. But again, the VC of such university is riding a car of 10 million. It's a matter of priority. All the principals of the principal officers, nobody is riding a car that is below 5, 7, 10 million. Now, the ICPC report of University System Review found that universities too are just like the Nigerian society. They're afflicted with all the vices that we're talking about. So what you are having is even a bottomless pit. So you sink money into it, you don't have the desired impact. Now, as a lecturer, you pay for a publication. As a lecturer, you sponsor yourself through MSc. As a lecturer, you sponsor yourself through PhD. If you're lucky, you get the support of TED Fund, which sometimes is not even enough. Now, if you want to put all of this into consideration, I bet you will not even lecture. But lecturing, teaching, like personal enterprise, is something that has to do with sacrifice. Right. Because if you look at the quantum of hour you put into research, to teach, and community service, you won't really want to do that. But one of the things that is always gratifying to us is meeting somebody on the way and the person acknowledges what you've done in his life. And the person will come and say, "Good afternoon, sir. You didn't remember me, but you were my lecturer at ABU or in JOS, or I'm currently in such a place." That is gratifying to know that your students are like Dr. Hashim. Most of the times on Facebook, a student come back to say, "Thank you for all that you've done for us. I'm in such a place. It's due to your grooming." That you are adding value to the people, to the society.
That is gratifying.
Is something that is it. And as an intellectual, you may have a valid point, you may have all it takes to embark on a course of action. If the timing is wrong, the sympathy will not be there. And I think this is what is happening now, because the country is undergoing a lot. Now, before you know it, I think there are reports that which of the workers in the petroleum sector are planning another strike. Right. And then by the time they go on strike, they are demanding, and that is why most of our colleagues that are with us, by the time they enter government, they turn this way. Because what they are saying in government is different from what they were saying when they were outside. And that is why some people are saying that they are surprised that the Minister of Education, that was a staunch supporter of ASU, is now against ASU. I think that equally called for a concern.
Now let's get Dr. Hashim's perspective as well. Dr. Hashim, if you can hear me. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has warned the negotiating team not to promise anything that the federal government cannot be able to implement. Don't you think this is also responsible, for stalling the negotiation process?
Please let me use 30 seconds to react on the corruption in the universities. It is part of why we are on this current strike. ASU cannot fight out the law. There is a provision, a mechanism to stop the corruption in the university visitation panel. But successive governments have refused to activate visitation panels. The reason is simple, as Dr. Hando has said. Anywhere you see management level cadre in the university, they have strong connections with the government. Even now, as I'm talking to you, for the past 2 years, we are asking government, you have raised these visitation panels, they have gone to these universities, please bring out white paper and sanction any officer found wanting in corruption. The government refused. In fact, the government is saying they can only release such white paper when they feel like releasing it. So it's not the fault of ASU that there is corruption in the university. ASU is fighting corruption through legal means. And then coming to your question that the president said they should not sign anything. It is not stalling. What ASU is saying, anything that should be arrived at should be out of collective bargaining principle. Don't come and just drop it on us. Discard. Government has spent millions of naira from Babalakin's committee to Professor Munzali's committee to Nimi Briggs committee. And the government now will just come by effect. We are in a democracy, and strike is not illegal. It's a legal means of seeking for redress. Let's come together. Let's discuss. Let it out of collective agreements. ASU is always open to that. So it's stalling. Let's come together. Let them bring their cards. Let them show us what's on ground. Let's discuss, find a lasting solution. But telling us this is it, you take it or leave it, will never solve the situation.
Dr. Hashim, we have seen some state universities pulling out of the strike, and which has also elicited a not so complimentary remark, according to the Vice Chancellor or Pro-Chancellors of State University. Is it beginning to appear that you are losing steam if some of your members are beginning to withdraw from this age-long strike?
Sir, it is not management that is on strike. There is difference between ASU as a union and state university management. State university management they were on strike. It was ASU that is on strike. Can you name any state university that's a member of ASU that has pulled out? No. The management will give, and the next hour, ASU of that state university will now bring their release that they are still on strike. One state university, listen to me please, that has even claimed to have done exam, they are bringing press release threatening. How do you conduct exam and now you are threatening the lecturers to go back? No. We understand it is a political as well as propaganda war. Management is not on strike, ASU is on strike.
Okay, Dr. Hashim, I was going to mention that wouldn't the position of this management have been justified, given that oftentimes even where these agreements are reached, the state governments would tell you that it is not binding on them as a state government to implement whatever is agreed upon with federal universities. Are there no validity in some of the positions that have been advanced by this management?
Their validity should start by rejecting what ASU has fought for successfully and such state universities are relying on. One, they should, from now henceforth, tell TED Fund, we don't need anything from you. They should now tell their lecturers in state university, you cannot access funds to go for PhD from TED Fund, because all these are terms of ASU. You cannot repick on one part and throw another part. It's political rhetoric, they can say it, but when the chips are down, they really know what to do.
Okay. Doctor, coming back to you, we have seen, because in all of this, it's not just the ASU and the government that are involved. We also have the parents and the student union. And everybody seems to have been putting out their perspective. The parents have expressed all kinds of worry, and rightly so, because they bear the brunt of these kids being at home. And of course, you know, and I do mind, it's the devil's workshop. They have made all kinds of suggestions. They have even offered to make contributions, you know, to sort of complement whatever it is that government is offering. What else can be done in the face of this stalemate? How can we move forward?
Well, it takes just one thing to move forward. Honesty. I'm a member of ASU. In whatever ASU is fighting for will still benefit me one way or the other. But I cannot allow the desire to benefit more from the system, to becloud my sense of judgment to the extent that I will not be able to speak my mind. And as such, ASU is a union. Nigeria is a nation. ASU is not more than the nation. ASU is part of the nation. In where you have two that are fighting for there to be peace, one must be seen to make a sacrifice, insistent sacrifice. Especially, fundamentally, there is a problem. ASU will go on strike. These monies will be released to management. ASU is not in charge of the university purse. And ASU has never constituted any team to monitor how these funds are utilized. A university that will tell ASU members no money for grant, research grants, is paying on academic staff over time, paying extra codes to management staff, traveling abroad for all sorts of conferences. Whereas the people that supposed to enjoy all of this in their determination to produce and disseminate knowledge are left in the coolers. It is in this country that the wives of vice chancellors wanted to go to Dubai for your international conference.
Okay.
And I and my colleague can barely travel to University of Ibadan for conferences. But the wife of vice chancellors are going to Dubai for international conference. And these are some of the things. And I used to give example. There were times that our universities were vibrant, not because they have revitalization fund. No, because the character of the lecturers reflected on the system to the extent that you have people that are perpetually anti-government, anti-management. Those were the people that made the system to work. And that is why if you mention a lot of universities, there are names that are synonymous to that struggle. For instance, if you mention Professor Jega, you mention Claude Ake, you mention people like Bala Usman, people like Professor Bangura, Patrick Wilmot, I'm mentioning those from ABU. These were the people that made the system to work. Not, and I continue to say, without the character that would propel development in our universities, I bet you if you give Nigerian universities 1 trillion, 2 trillion, it's just a matter of time we'll all go back to strike.
Oh, that's a sad news, I must say. Now let's get to the reaction of Dr. Hashim on this particular narrative.
Yes, I'm just smiling, and I know Dr. Abdurrahman will smile. You know, we are on air. But we'll discuss when we go off air more things. But my reaction is still going back. Unless if we want ASU to constitute itself into a law. I have made mention of visitation panel. You release money to universities, and the law establishing the university said the visitor, if it is a state, the governor is the visitor. If it is a federal university, president is the visitor. Make sure there is a running visitation panel that you appoint that will be visiting those universities, checking their books, financial and non-financial appointment, everything, and then write out, this is what they have done, sanction them. Government said they will not do until ASU goes on strike. When ASU goes on strike, they quickly establish that legal panel, and then the panels have done their work. They have reported to government. Government has sit on the report. ASU has done its part, and he mentioned of names. We still have that character. All we have is two hands to carry it. When government release and sanction, in fact, to be candid with you, there are people that ASU have written against ICC only for government to give them a more juicy offer in Abuja. After ASU has written to ICPC with fact, with details, and then the same government is giving them another offer. What is government saying? Is government pouring sand on the face of ASU that at the risk of your members, you are able to give us this fact? We are now saying thank you. We are giving that person you are reporting an even more bigger role to play. So as Dr. Abdurrahman has said, let's be honest to ourselves. When the government is honest, I think every other person will fall in line and we should have a leeway out of it.
You, Dr. Hashim. Dr. Abdurrahman has also made a very vital point, which is that at some point we need to make headway. We cannot continue to perpetually remain at this state. And in admission of our current economic reality, as truthful as it may be, that there had been negotiations that had reached certain recommendations. Do you think, by your own evaluation and our current reality, that the government can honestly, even if it admits on television, can honestly meet most of those recommendations, given what we face to do, before we are able to return to the classroom?
It's not a one-time offer. There are timestamps to all this. What ASU is saying, give us genuine truthfulness, that give us timestamps that you implement. ASU, we have a lot of people that are into all the research. We know the true condition. But then The government should set its priorities right. You cannot be telling academics that you don't have money to do this, but you have billions to spend in deworming 10 million children that you have been so-called feeding at home. You cannot tell us you are broke, don't have money, but you are spending trillions of naira in consumption, not in knowledge production. So if government is truthful and it sits down with ASU, ASU, as Dr. Maman said, is not bigger than the nation. Reason. In fact, let me say this, not only government, any organization can write to ASU and sit down with ASU. ASU is always open. I'm not saying government must do this. There is never a time we mandate government. We say, come, let's discuss, let's amicably resolve this. But in a situation where you give us take or leave it, it will not go well to government, it will not go well to our universities. Well, let the government set its priorities. Block leakages. The government have the capacity, the capability, and wherewithal to take care of ASU needs.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Hashim from ABU Zaria, for those insightful contributions this morning. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, sir.
And coming back to you, Doctor, for your final words as we run out of time, what are your final thoughts on how we can make headway?
Well, it takes two to tangle, and it takes two to settle a dispute. ASU must do Nigerians a favor. It's not about demanding. ASU should also put their principals on their toes to make sure that whatever is released to the university is not used to service the lifestyle of some few individuals. And ASU members too should not mislead the government, because ASU members are responsible for accreditation, and we know what they do to ensure that they get accredited even when they don't have the required staff strength, just to keep the departments open.
Right.
The visitation panel that we're talking about, we know how they do it, including the reports that are submitted. Some of them are not genuine. And that has ballooned the demand. So when you have a government that was departing power and the government wanted to stay in power and went into agreements that are not implementable, an agreement that did not foresee the circumstances that we're in today, an agreement that was made just to win votes, is different from an agreement that is made when people are challenged. So we must understand our trajectories. We must understand when we need to make sacrifices so that we can become the heroes that will be celebrated, not villains, so that we will not be lumped together as intellectuals with those that are destroying the country. The difference is clear.
Right.
We are men of understanding. They are men of needs. So they pursue their needs. We pursue understanding, and that's supposed to reflect.
We do hope that at the end of the day we come to a consensus and all this, wraps up.
What a way to bring today's conversation to a close. I'm sure we have touched on very issues that are very dear to a lot of households in Nigeria. There is really a house that has not been impacted by this. Dr. Abu Hashim talked about the economy of the campuses. If you are not directly affected by the crisis, you are impacted by the economy of the campus, and even as a country, we are generally affected. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio, provide this perspective for us.
Pleasure is all mine.
And we hope that when next we call you, you will be available to give us more perspective. This is how we draw the curtain on today's show. Thank you for being a part of what has been a very beautiful Thursday morning. I am Sunday Michael Ogo.
And I'm Zainab Bala. See you tomorrow.